Going to call the meeting to order. Good evening. My name's John Samia, and I'm the chair of the Shrewsbury Board of Selectmen. On behalf of my colleagues in the Town Manager's Office, I'd like to welcome you to the October 26, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight's live broadcast is brought to you by Mark Serra of the Shrewsbury Media Connection. In addition to tonight's live broadcast on channels 30, 330, and Facebook, tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on the same channels from tomorrow until our next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, November 9th. Tonight's meeting will also be available on YouTube starting tomorrow for your viewing enjoyment. Now we'll get to the preliminary matters on our agenda. First item on the agenda is to approve bills, payrolls, and warrants.
So moved. Second.
Have been moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is to approve minutes of October 5th, 2021 and October 12th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Have been moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is announcements, reports. Colleagues, any announcements? No? I have a couple announcements. First is an announcement for public parking at Beal School. Public parking is now available at the old Beal School, 1 Maple Avenue in the Town Center District. Shrewsbury's Planning and Economic Development Department is pleased to announce that the parking lot at the old Beal School is now available to the public between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. 7 days per week. Visitors to Shrewsbury's Town Center are encouraged to park once and walk to your favorite Town Center business or restaurant destination, and you can visit the www.shrewsburyma.gov/Town Center for more information. And the second announcement is the Shrewsbury Planning and Economic Development Department, in collaboration with the local Rapid Recovery Plan Committee and the Town Center Association, partnered with Goldman and York to conduct an assessment of the economic health of the Shrewsbury's Town Center District, to hear feedback from the community and Town Center businesses, and to identify strategic projects to support a successful reemergence post-COVID-19. The local Rapid Recovery Plan final report can be found on the town website, shrewsburyma.gov, by going to the Planning and Economic Development page under the Government tab and looking under Economic Development Reports on their landing page. It is titled Local Rapid Recovery Plan Final Report, October 2021. Thank you to everyone who participated in the public workshops, completed the surveys, and helped spread the word. There are many terrific recommendations outlined in the final report, some of which have already begun to be implemented, so please check it out. That is it for announcements. The next item on the agenda is Town Manager's Report. Mr. Mizikar.
Good evening, board members. Two brief updates for you this evening. The first is I'm pleased to report that Selco has been awarded a $50,000 grant from the Mass EVIP and Mass Electric Vehicle Incentive Program to purchase and install a level 2 dual port charger here at the town hall. The board will remember you selected a location for that along the drive heading towards the COA area. So Selco is going to be moving forward with that grant. And then I just wanted to thank the DPW team for a successful yard waste collection drop-off at the old Beal School this past weekend. Residents, with the support of DPW staff, filled 4 roll-off dumpsters of yard waste. The next opportunity residents will have for this type of drop-off will be Saturday, November 20th. And I'll move into the COVID update. If
Please continue, yes. Yep. If there are no questions or comments, there aren't any, please go forward.
All right, so updates for the board this evening with regards to COVID-19. There's been 59 cases in the last 7 days and 91 total cases since your last regularly scheduled meeting on October 12th. We continue to report out to the public every Friday. I do want to note that although these deaths did not occur since your October 12th meeting, there have been 4 additional deaths indicated as the state and other officials work their way back through data and records over the course of time since COVID started. That increases the total number of Shrewsbury residents have died from COVID-19 up to 75 at this point. Our trend continues to be significant and steady in the upper single digits or lower double-digit numbers on a daily basis, which is indicated by the graph that's on the screen here. I did just want to take an opportunity to provide a little bit of additional data than we've been able to provide in the past. So our partners at the Worcester Department of Public Health have analyzed data from early September through mid-October. And we're using metrics that we got all too familiar with during the winter months last year, and we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of compare where we are. We've seen a positive downward trend in reducing the number of cases over the 6-week period that's shown, but we're still averaging somewhere around 18 or 19 cases per day per 100,000 in population, with a positivity rate still over 2%. If the state were still using colors to designate the level of COVID-19 activity within the community, the town would still be yellow, which is the second highest given the number of cases per day per 100,000 residents. So we'll continue to monitor that and work with the Board of Health. And hopefully things continue to improve as they appear to be doing nationwide. Speaking of continued improvement, we continue to see hundreds of additional people receiving their first and or final doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. We're over 77% with at least one dose, and 71% who are considered fully vaccinated. That's additional several hundred in each category since your last meeting on October 12th. And then finally, here's the age breakout of both cases and COVID vaccine status by age group. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that the board may have about COVID-19.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. DiPaolo.
Mr. Mizuka, they're not doing much contact tracing anymore, are they?
They certainly do during whenever there are cases, so we still have
But-
the assistance of the public health nurses.
Like the weekly things that we're getting, they're contact tracing those? I thought
Yeah,
they stopped-
absolutely.
Oh, I thought
Nope.
they stepped back on those.
Nope, they're still doing that.
Oh.
Yep.
So they don't have a sense of what the spread is in town?
It's just general community spread.
It's not like in clusters of families or anything like that?
There are some addresses. We don't see the addresses, but public health shares with us generalized information. There certainly are occasions when a household or address has more than one, but there's no significant clusters in any facilities or any particular location.
So does that mean it's just from people being out and about?
Yeah, just general community spread.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one quick question. So a few weeks back, I think we don't have any more information about breakthrough cases at all. They still don't get any information on that? Just be curious to, as we're looking at booster shots for various age groups, to see how effective the various vaccines are before people get a booster, but okay, it's just information. It looks like be nice to have, but it's not going to happen. All right, any other questions? If not, we'll go into next items under meetings and hearings. We have a 7:05 meeting with Paul Zikos Group Auctioneers regarding the auction of the Edgemere Diner car at 51 Hartford Turnpike. Welcome.
Good evening. As you said, I'm Paul Zikos Group Auctioneers. We've had a long history here in town, as not quite as long as the Edgemere Diner, but nonetheless, the Edgemere Diner is really kind of iconic for the community, and it's something the town has determined it is going to sell. They are selling just the diner, not the land that it sits on. And this is an important decision for the town because it has always played a role locally. But it is time for new ownership, and we wanted to just come forward to primarily talk to the folks at home and make sure that the local folks are very well aware that the auction of the diner and its contents will take place on November 18th. That's going to be on site at 11 a.m. We'll have an open house inspection and bidder registration at 10 a.m. There's a $2,500 deposit to qualify to participate, and that needs to be presented in a cashier's check or bank treasurer's check, so no personal checks, no cash, no business checks. But that will qualify somebody to register and participate in the auction. If they're the high bidder, they will use that $2,500 deposit check towards the purchase price. And those individuals that are unsuccessful then can take their $2,500 and go to the casino or a cannabis place, I guess. So after that, in 5 days, the balance will be due. So that will be on November 23rd, and 30 days after that, which would be December 23rd, we'd request from the buyer that they will have removed the diner from the site at that point. It is the buyer's responsibility to make any and all arrangements for the removal of the diner, but it's really a neat place for those of you that are familiar with it. There's been a lot of meetings there, a lot of decisions made along the way over the years, but certainly it's maintained some of its true architectural elements. This was produced by a Fedoro dining car company in the 40s, so it's a little earlier than some of the other diners throughout the central Massachusetts area. And it has a lot of stainless steel, dome ceilings, 18 stools, about 40 feet of countertop in there. It's about 42 feet long, 16 feet wide, and it would be really a great project for somebody in terms of a restoration or improving that and making it vibrant as it once was. And it's a great opportunity for those of you that are thinking of, during the pandemic, changing your job. Here you go. It's the Edgemere Diner. You can name it what you want. So we just wanted to come forward, let folks know what was going on. They can certainly visit our website at zekosgroup.com. It's Z as in zebra, EKOS group, GROUP.com. They'll be able to see some exterior and interior photographs, a brief description of the dining car. And there will also be a memorandum of sale that will be forthcoming, basically a bill of sale for personal property. Indicating that it's going to be sold as is, where is the deadlines for full and complete payment and removal of the property, and that will be posted online at some point prior to the auction on November 18th. So November 18th, on site, 11 a.m. bidder registration, and a walk through the property at 10 a.m. $2,500 required to participate, and the diner will be sold to the highest bidder. So don't call us on November 19th and say, "Oh, we should have been there." Just be there. We'd really love a local buyer for this. It would be terrific if that could happen. So we welcome any questions or comments or insight at our office. Again, zekosgroup.com or 842-9000, 842-9000. Any questions?
No, just a comment.
Mr. DiPaolo.
I'm looking for another project, Paul, but I don't think my wife would let me buy it, so I guess someone else will have it. Somebody else local's gonna have to do it.
I'd love to have you be there. So, again, we welcome anyone. That's the beauty of an auction. The town wanted to sell this asset in an open, public, transparent way and make sure there was a level playing field for everybody to participate. So I think it's the best way to go on this, regardless of the outcome. The reality is everyone will have had an opportunity to participate.
Any other questions? One question. So it's not going to be the easiest to just pick up and carry. So what happens if someone doesn't come by December 23rd and take it? What's the next step after that?
Well, that would be a binding agreement. So any costs associated with running an additional sale or removing it, having the town remove it on its own, that buyer would be responsible for. So they would have $2,500 at risk. They would then be paying for the property in full within 5 days. If they don't remove it, they lose the amount of money that they've provided to the town. That's totally and entirely non-refundable for any reason whatsoever. And look at the bright side, we get to sell it again or maybe open for Christmas.
Great. Thank you. Mrs. Cassavant.
I just noticed it mentions that the sign is also for sale separately.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Beth. We have decided to sell the sign that sits close to Route 20 separately. So if the bidder of the diner wishes to acquire that sign, they are certainly able to do so. They can bid on it immediately after the sale of the diner. Also, if somebody else wishes to buy that simply for memorabilia or maybe to hang it in a local hotspot here in our community, they'll have the opportunity to do that as well. That does not require a deposit to bid. You simply, at the conclusion of the auction, need to pay for that in full.
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
I just want to thank Mr. Zikas for his continued partnership on projects like this with the town. It's always, you always provide more than you get from these things, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do this for a lot of cities and towns across Massachusetts, so I love working for my hometown, and certainly we've had some success in doing that, so let's keep doing it.
Great. Anything else? Great, thanks for coming by, thanks for letting the public know about this, and hopefully we have a great turnout and a great sale, so thank you.
You bet.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda is also under meetings and hearings. It's a meeting with Chief James Vonna of the Shrewsbury Fire Department, providing a departmental update. This is something new this year. Typically, we hear a lot from the department heads during the budget process. However, in addition to the Finance Committee hearings, also an opportunity to learn about our leaders, our departments, and to hear about the great things that they're doing. As we know, our fire department, our first responders have a lot of challenges and keep our community safe, particularly over the last 18 months or so during the pandemic. So it's an opportunity for Chief Vonna to tell us about the great things that the department are doing. So welcome, Chief Vonna.
Thank you very much, everyone, for having me. I appreciate the invite to talk about the fire department. And let me just see if I can get the presentation to pop up here without any issues. Excellent. Okay. Just for people that didn't know, I'm Jim Vonna, Fire Chief, Town of Shrewsbury, since 2010, in my 12th year now as chief, and I can hardly believe it myself when I say that. So we'll just get started. I'll talk about some of the things that are going on with the fire department. I'll give you a little background. This is the mission that we work from, our mission statement: protect life, property, and the environment. We use public education, fire prevention, and emergency response, and we tell and teach all the guys to always be helpful, courteous, and professional in their responses. We have 3 fire stations spread about town. Fire headquarters on Church Road. We have Station 2 over by Tavern in the Square, in the area that used to be Spags, formerly known as Spags. And we have Station 3 on Route 20 on Centec Boulevard. Our current staffing configuration is 43 full-time personnel, myself, Deputy Chief, and Administrative Assistant Kelly Leahy. We basically do the majority of the administrative work for the department. Headquarters going on the calls. We have a captain and 3 firefighters. Most of the time, also the one of the firefighters stays back as a dispatcher right now, and doesn't go on the truck. So a lot of the time you have a captain and then 2 firefighters going out on an engine on a call. The captain usually goes in a separate command vehicle. Station 2, we have a lieutenant and 2 firefighters, and Station 3, we have 2 firefighters there. So these are just some of the types of calls. Fires are actually about 5% of the calls that we do. The great majority of what we do, honestly, is medical calls. That's about 65 to 70% of the calls we go on. But basically, we respond to any type of call that people, have a problem with. We will go out and help them out. We have usually a couple of boat fires. You can see on the lower right, boat fire this summer that we had on the lake. We had a couple this year. we go to, 500-600 car accidents a year. And that's a fire that we recently had at the Montessori school about a month or two ago, which was actually held to one room, so that turned out as a good stop and very minimal damage, and they were able to reopen. These are just a couple of the calls that we had last night. The clock in the center of town, right at Maple and Main. There was a vehicle that crashed through there. Fortunately, there was no damage to the clock itself. It just came up just short of hitting that. And we also had a house fire on Main Street. 11-year-old boy was home, smoke in the house, made a call to his mother, who was, I guess, right around the corner, and called to the fire department. They were having some work done at the house, and there were oily rags in one of the rooms that they were doing work on. And oily rags can spontaneously combust, and that's what happened. Fortunately, we were able to get there quick and stop that right in its tracks, and there was very little damage. You can see just some damage to the floor and some smoke damage in the house. So, in my town reports since 2013, I've been saying that we need between 5 and 10 new personnel on the department. We've added a deputy chief in 2016. In 2019, we added 4 firefighters, and we also promoted 4 firefighters to lieutenant. And that was done through a grant through the federal government. And so we're about halfway to the goals we've talked about. This past year, we tried for a grant again. Unfortunately, we're not successful on it. And I come to find out that only 23% of the grants that actually were applied for were successful. But we'll continue to work with the town manager and you folks just to talk about what the best options are to address staffing for the fire department going forward. These are our runs calls from 2020. Overall, we're up 10% on the calls from the previous year, so we're projecting towards 4,500 emergency calls for this year, which will be the most calls that we've ever done as a department. My deputy chief, Seth Colby, handles the majority of the fire prevention. He is also the emergency management director, and he oversees a lot of the COVID-19 supplies and grants through the federal government. And the amount of work he does is fantastic. I couldn't be happier with the way things have gone with him. These are some of the big projects that we had in 2021. Obviously, the big one was the Beale School being opened up and completed over the summer. We continue to work on the Market Basket, Edgemere Crossing project, but you can see there's a long list. This is just from our last inspectors meeting of all the other projects that are currently being worked on in town. And we know there are some other new ones coming as well that haven't got on the list yet. So a little plug for Fire Prevention Month. Learn the sounds of fire safety. Check your smoke alarms, CO detectors. I couldn't not plug that, We just recently had the public education conference. One of our firefighters was nominated and recognized by the State Fire Marshal's Office with a certificate of recognition for a video that he put together. Basically talks about fire safety and home escape plans. He did the whole thing with his family. I told him he did a great job editing it. He informed me that it was his 11-year-old daughter that edited the whole thing on her iPad, and it's just a great video. Obviously, we don't have the time to play it, but if you went to the fire department Facebook page, you could find it on the videos there. But to the right, you can see there's a letter there that we receive a grant for about $9,000 every year to help the SAFE program, which is student awareness of fire education. It also includes the seniors as well. We also have another program where we're doing free smoke installation through a grant that firefighter at the time, now Lieutenant Mike Borowick, had put together. And Lieutenant Borowick was basically able to secure just under $15,000 to do a smoke detector program. We actually got that money 2 years ago, but we had to put the whole program on hold because of COVID for a year. So we're out there actively putting these smoke detectors in houses now. The only stipulation is we don't do hardwired, we only do the battery-operated type, so it's mainly in houses that were built before 1975, which is the start of the building code. You can see all that information too on our Facebook page, or you can go to the town's website as well. Just an update on our apparatus. We have 6 engines, 1 through 5, a rescue, and a tower ladder. We also have a brush unit. We have a command vehicle that was paid for by a donation from Barbara Donahue, who also donated money for some of the other equipment we have. That vehicle has been completely built and finished for about the last 4 months, with the exception of it doesn't have a chip. So it's sitting in a parking lot in Michigan, completely assembled, and we're waiting for a chip on it for 4 months now. It was supposed to be delivered back in August, so. We also have our maintenance pickup truck. We have the fire prevention vehicle, which was a new one, was funded by the town in the last town meeting. However, that's on order as well, also awaiting a chip. We have a hovercraft, and we also have a Ribcraft rescue boat. This is engine 1, 2, 3, and the rescue. You see they're all very similar. Engines 4 and 5 are 2 of our older vehicles that we mostly use as reserve vehicles when these vehicles take a lot of pounding on the roads and everything, so they need a lot of maintenance. These engines are getting towards 200,000 miles, but they serve as excellent backup vehicles. They don't get run every single day. And then, of course, that's the tower ladder. We bought a few years back for $8,500 a truck from Northborough. They were upgrading their forestry truck. We invested $8,500 to purchase it, and then about another $2,000. It only had 12,000 miles on it, and we expect to get another 5 to 10 years hopefully out of this vehicle. This is our hovercraft, which was replaced about two and a half years ago. Mrs. Donahue gave us the money for this vehicle. It replaced the previous hovercraft. This is a 3rd generation of hovercrafts that we have, and it was used earlier in the spring to rescue a dog out of icy water. We've also used it for other animals, other dogs, and we've actually, over the years, between all the hovercrafts, pulled 2 or 3 people to safety with rescues. We also have a Ribcraft boat, also donated by Mrs. Donahue. It's been obviously very generous to the town and the fire department over the years. We've been expanding our water rescue capability over the last few years, and we got a $5,000 grant award from ADT, and we purchased this inflatable water rescue boat, which they fill up with the same air tanks that they use on their backs. It basically inflates in about a minute or so, and the guys can get it out of the vehicle and into the water in under 2 minutes. Everyone refers to it as the banana boat. So, over the last couple of years, these are the grants that we've gotten from the Department of Fire Services and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We did get a $20,000 grant for protective firefighting gear this year, and we expect to get it again next year. It's a 5-year program, and there's all different types of equipment you can purchase with it, but this year the need was for protective firefighting gear. So the United States Fire Administration, FEMA, federal government funding. This is just basically the list of the grants that we've gotten in the last few years as well. The largest of which was $570,000 for the additional 4 men, and it pays for those in part for the past 3 years. And since 2018, grant writing is mostly done by Mike Borowick in partnership with the chiefs and other folks that have expertise in certain areas, and we pulled in over $700,000 in grants since 2018. Several years ago, we switched from Scott air packs to MSA, and the self-contained breathing apparatus. It also comes from. You ever heard the word scuba, right? That's just self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So. Firefighting gear was adapted from that. The MSA equipment that we have right now has been working out great. We replaced masks, harness, air bottles. They have specialized air gauges and regulators. This is for firefighter rescue. They have bags that go along with that in case someone ever got in trouble in a fire. They have rescue bags. Everyone thinks fires like, all the TV shows and movies, but in reality, this is what we would consider a light smoke condition. This is training that we did with a fog machine. This is actually very easy to see in, but you can see what it looks like. And I'm just bringing this up because this is what it really looks like most of the time when you go into a good, hard-working fire, and it's all black and can see next to nothing. These are pictures that I just picked off the internet. But basically, you can't see, you can't hear, and it's very difficult to communicate when you're in a fire. We use bullet thermal imaging cameras to help see inside of a fire. It just gives you the thermal imprint. The new air packs that we bought actually have personal thermal imagers built right into the regulators and air gauges. So if a firefighter ever got in trouble or didn't have a thermal imaging camera on them, because we don't have them for every single firefighter, they can use the one that's built into their air pack. So it helps to see a little bit better in a fire than we could in the past. And these new, I say new, that we've had them for a couple of years now, these new air packs also have Bluetooth technology. So one of the other things that's very difficult is to hear in a fire with radio transmission and you're wearing the mask and everything. But these have Bluetooth built into them, and it makes it much easier, at least much easier than when I get on the job, to hear and see in a fire. And as you can see, we do have fires. These are all incidents that happened in Shrewsbury within the last year or so. We do a lot of mutual aid, going to other towns, and a lot of towns come into Shrewsbury. We primarily work with Northborough, Westborough, and on occasion Southborough. We train with 4 other towns, Westborough, Northborough, Southborough, and Hopkinton, on a regular basis. And this is a recent training that we did over at the Worcester Fire Tower with those towns that I just mentioned. And the more that we do this, the more, it seems like the smoother and smoother our operations get. We learn the capabilities of their vehicles and staffing, and everybody gets to know each other. It's great to pull up an emergency and say to the guy, "How are you doing?" Not, "Who are you?" Not, "How are you?" Not, "Who are you?" So, sorry, I'm trying to move along fairly quickly here. One of the things that we've been doing over the last few years is building out our training capacity in a training center down at Station 3. It started out with a couple of Connex boxes, and we were able to save some money and get some donations to build on top of the Connex boxes, and we can actually simulate with a smoke machine, small fire evolutions in this building, so we're hoping to build that out more. Westboro and Northboro oftentimes come over to use this building as well. And here you can see just some of the training that the firefighters have done over the years in the training building, and that's located at Station 3. For our policy, procedures, and additional training, we use Lexipol. I know the police just started using Lexipol as well. It's probably the standard for policy right now, as John, you can appreciate it, defendable policy, they call it, so. But we also have the Fire Rescue Academy, which is part of that, where the guys can do online training. And they get updates that actually go right to an app on their phone for training as well. One of the things that we're going through right now is a transition from Firehouse software, which we used for about 10 to 15 years. It's no longer supported. It was actually bought out by another company. So we're transitioning over to a company called First Do. So what we did is in the past, we had a lot of these different types of technologies, and we had to buy a separate type of technology to call our firefighters, recall them back through their phones, to do GPS. It was all different types of technology. The new company we're moving to is called First Do, and basically they do all of this, so it eliminate all the others, and it's really a little bit actually more cost effective than what we were doing, and it's all one platform now. As you know, we passed the override for the override for the police station, and $5 million on top of that was the radio and infrastructure project. Basically overseeing that is our radio expert for the fire department, Joe Milos. He's also the mechanic for the department. And that's a big project. We started getting in the last couple weeks some of the supplies. So this is fire headquarters right now, and I've been informed this is about 20% of the boxes that are going to be delivered in the coming months. So all these components are being cataloged at fire headquarters right now. And this will be part of the whole infrastructure project that upgrades all the radios and dispatch centers for the entire town. And here's some of the guys. And thanks everybody for your support. And I just ask if anyone had any questions. I know I went over the time limit.
No, thank you. It was a great presentation. Again, it's a different opportunity, not during budget season, but just a chance to show what you do on a daily basis for all of our 38,000 plus residents in the adjacent communities too, when we support others. Any questions or comments?
Go
ahead,
I
Mr.
guess
Vallo.
A comment question. The trucks going out on first responder all the time.
Yep.
Which I think is a great idea. The people will say, why do they always have to go out? Having to have family call for an ambulance and that, I know what they do when there's an emergency there. It isn't just driving up and shaking hands with the paramedics. And I don't think people realize how valuable it is until they have an emergency and everybody shows up, the police, the fire. Could you speak a little bit about when they do go, and it's it's not, you don't have to do something at every one of them. It depends on what it is, but you don't know until you get there.
Right.
So when you get there and there is a serious incident not a car accident, because I mean that's pretty obvious, but like when you go to a house or somebody calls for a medical emergency, and it turns out it is a serious medical emergency, and you get there first. Could you just talk, I know what you do, and I've seen it, and I think it's really impressive, but could you talk a little bit about what the firefighters do when they get there and how they interact with the paramedics when there's
Sure.
an emergency?
First of all, folks should remember that there's only one ambulance in town. It's over at Station 2. And we have multiple calls going on around town many times. So the fact that we have trained firefighters in all the stations. The minimum they have to be trained to is called emergency first responder, which is CPR, AED, and you can give some medications. A lot of our guys, about half are EMTs, and we also have 2 guys that are trained as paramedics. So everyone is trained to handle a medical. One of the things that the fire truck doesn't do is transport. So that's, basically the firefighters are usually the first ones there. Sometimes police officers are the first ones there too. And we're basically there to stabilize the patient, take their vitals, see how they're doing depending on the seriousness of the call, and basically help package the patient up to go in the ambulance to be transported, in most cases, over to UMass. So all the guys are trained to that minimum standard. Many of the guys exceed that minimum standard with their training. One of the issues is if you have 3 or 4 medical calls within a 20-minute or a half an hour period, then you're going to have ambulances coming from different places. UMass sends some out of the city, but if they're transporting a patient and you get a second call, a lot of times our mutual aid partners, Westboro and Northboro, will send their paramedic ambulances over into Shrewsbury to do the transport. They also have other private ambulances that support UMass, Worcester EMS. So you could see any number of private ambulances from this area in town as well. But there's oftentimes multiple medical calls going on in town.
So I think I just want to commend the department on the great job they do, because those of us
Thank you.
who've seen them, family members and stuff, they work seamlessly between all of them, the police, the fire, and the paramedics. And I think a lot of times when they get there, they make the paramedics' job a lot easier because they already started working on the patient and can transfer information besides actually, give some care. So I don't think people realize when they see those trucks go out what you do when you get there. So keep
We recently had a really great save as a 1-year-old child that was coming out of a family situation that everyone in the house that had COVID had stopped breathing. And firefighters were the first ones. Firefighters and police officers pretty much arrived at the same time and started doing CPR on a 1-year-old. And the mom and the daughter came up to the fire station 2 weeks ago to visit with the guys that actually were doing CPR on the baby. She's doing fine now. But the ambulance was a good, 5 or 10 minutes behind, the police and fire getting there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Mr. LeBeau?
Chief, our new Tower 1 isn't so new anymore.
No,
I think it's about 15 years old now.
yep.
What do we see for the, lifespan of that vehicle?
I'm expecting, normally we get 20 to 25 years out of our vehicles, even if they end up in secondary. The mechanic that we have does such a good job maintaining that vehicle, plus the fact that vehicle is only used for certain types of incidents, building fires, fire alarms, like commercial buildings, municipal buildings, doesn't run on every call. So I'm hoping that vehicle will get us to at least 25 years and potentially a little bit longer than that, just because we don't put the everyday, we don't run that to medical calls, we don't run that. If that one goes to a medical call, we have a lot of mechanical problems going on at the fire station. But I expect hopefully that vehicle could last somewhere between 25 and 30 years. That's a major investment.
Follow up?
Oh, please.
So, if I recall correctly, I think we spent $750,000.
Yes.
And I think we were right before a change in law about emissions, which saved us a bunch of money because
Yep.
So just prepare me for the sticker shock. What's a tower, comparable tower running for?
Right now, I would say about $1.5 million. 10 years from now, it could be 2 million,
Yep.
I don't know.
But that's not so much of a surprise, because the engine trucks used to cost, what, $250, $350, and now they're
Now they're, yeah.
$750.
Well, one of the things too is, like, I've had folks, we've talked about, like, Fitchburg would buy an engine, the same make as our engine, but ours cost 100,000 more than theirs did. And people ask why, and we say, well, we order a bigger motor, we order a bigger transmission, and we keep the vehicles to make them last 25 years. Fitchburg's model is, they keep the truck 15 years and they get rid of it. So, you can pay me now, or you can pay me later, you know, so I think the way we do it, and we're fortunate, like I say, to have such a good mechanic, that we keep the vehicles on the road in great condition far longer than a lot of other places.
Thanks, I'm good.
Sure, any other questions? Mrs. Cassavant?
Thank you for the presentation, Chief. You keep mentioning your great mechanic, and I think it's worth the public knowing that a lot of the repair work that is necessary on the vehicles is done in-house.
Yes,
And that, you know, you spoke also about how you have your in-house grant writer also. And just the value that that brings to the department and to the community, in the money that we're saving and the money that we're bringing in from grants, that all of that is a benefit to the taxpayers in the town. So certainly grateful for those firefighters that are, you know, playing that role for us in addition to their firefighting duties. Also really glad to see that the materials are starting to arrive for the new public safety radio communication system. Having had an opportunity before Glavin was taken down to come in on a training that the department was doing and see light smoke conditions, and then, you know, going through the discussion around why the public safety radio communication system needed to be upgraded, and understanding that sometimes in those conditions in certain buildings in town, there might be dead zones in places where our firefighters and our first responders can't communicate with one another. Just makes it all the more important that we upgrade those systems and make sure that we're keeping our first responders safe. Thank you again for coming in tonight.
thank you.
Any other questions? Mrs. Flynn?
Yeah, no questions. I just wanted to say thank you. I think,
Oh.
you know, it's always just so impressive to hear how much you and your department are doing, and please know that it is greatly appreciated.
I have to say the guys do the work, but, you know, I talked to Kevin numerous occasions about getting guys certain trainings and develop them, and it's come back tenfold in saving the town and the department money, I believe, so.
I think in conversations I've had with you and several members in your department, it's just the camaraderie, you know, working together. I know that I've heard stories where other towns are surprised at how well maybe you and other stakeholders in the community work together. And I know that a lot of people are really committed to maximizing grant opportunities and really elevating public safety in this town. So I know that these meetings are must-see TV, so we probably have a ton of people watching, but all kidding aside, I think it's great to, you know, push this out and make people aware and have them, you know, really reflect on everything that you're doing, because like we always say, it's, you might not get the recognition when everything is being done well, but, I mean, these are life and death situations, and, you know, very critical, what you're doing for us, so thank you.
Thank you. I can't take the credit for the work that they do, but I can certainly sit here and, you know, just smile and be happy that I know that, you know, if there's a fire and I'm on vacation or out of town, I don't have to worry about being there. It's gonna get taken care of in a professional manner by guys that work hard and train all the time.
Any other questions? The last slide, or second to last slide, Chief, you had a lot of members of the fire department there, and earlier, several months back, had the opportunity to go to the fire department's award ceremony, and the words that came to mind as I was listening to the speakers, just brotherhood and family. But as we saw through COVID-19 back in March of 2020, our fire department first responders selflessly went not knowing what this virus was, and treated every member of this community as part of that family too. And we're truly fortunate to have such a brave group of men and women who not only treat each other with respect and have their backs, but everyone in this community. So thank you for that, and you have a great team there. The couple quick questions, one on supply chain issues that may not have hit yet. I know we do a lot of repairs inside. Have we started to see either any supplies that you need or any of the parts that we need to maintain the vehicles? Have we had any issues yet or delays getting the parts that we need yet?
Obviously, with the 2 vehicles that we ordered for the department, one's completely built and the other one is almost completely built, and it's gonna have the same waiting period for whenever they get a chip. My mechanic does most of the ordering and does most of the spending for the department. On certain items, he has seen some slowdown, but he does have the foresight to, when he sees that something he'll buy ahead of time and stockpile it, so that when the time comes, when you need it, we already have it. So we haven't seen like horrible, hard time getting certain things. Our general supplies we're still getting, but I don't know.
Okay.
It's not super difficult yet, but then again, it's not what it was.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. And then another question. We've talked a lot about strategic planning. A little later tonight, we'll be authorizing the town manager to enter into a consulting agreement with a consultant that we chose to take Shrewsbury to 2030. It's really a community engagement process. As it relates to the fire department, just a couple questions. One, obviously, I know in terms of recommended headcount and what you'd like to see there, but what are the needs do you see for the fire department? And I guess related to that, I'll just put the questions together. Where do you see firefighting going generally? Is it more technology-based? If you were to sort of put the crystal ball in front of you, how do you see that evolving over the next 8-9 years?
yeah, I think we've been, for the most part, on the front edge of the curve as far as technology goes. We've vetted out the best systems we can find. When the new air packs came out, I went to Kevin and I explained the whole thing, and I said, but there's a catch, and Kevin says, I know, it's more expensive, right? And I said, yes, it's the latest technology, but, I couldn't not advocate for the best technology and the best equipment when it's used in the worst type of life and death situations kind of thing. But we've stayed ahead of the curve on the technology. I still think we're lagging behind still on our staffing, but Kevin and I have had, very productive conversations about, where we can go with that, and we're just looking at the timing, and the override has certainly helped, so thank the community for the 2.5 override. But that's where we're lagging behind now, is on the national standards, and compare the size of our town to the size of other towns. There are towns our size that have fire departments with twice as many people as we have, so. Granted, they might have a slightly different demographic and a lot more commercial property, but in general, that's our biggest shortcoming.
Okay, thank you.
No matter what the technology, it's still the guys that do the work.
And as part of the process, obviously, we'll want your input as well as being
Yep.
part of not only the community, but in addition to your role as chief, to look forward to the process. So thank you, and look forward to your feedback on that. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you. Thank you for coming. It was a great presentation. We appreciate the information. Hopefully, this can be an annual event, if you
Yes.
don't mind. But it gives an opportunity and insight on our workings and the great things that our department does on a daily basis, and what our brave men and women do on a daily basis. So thank you for coming.
Thank you all for your support.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Mizikar, quick question. Have we started to see anything on supply chain issues yet either? No? Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is also under meetings, hearings. It's a follow-up from the meeting we had on October 12th. It's a meeting with Sharon Thomas, Town Clerk, Dan McCullen, GIS Coordinator, to review and act to accept as presented by Town Clerk the 2020 re-precincting plan for the town of Shrewsbury. Colleagues, as you know, we had this presented last time. We asked for a little more opportunity to digest the recommendation. And here we are today on the 26th to hopefully take action due to the deadline we have, but I think we're all on a point to do so. Mr. Mizikar, I'll hand it over to you for any additional comments.
Nope, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. We had a team of town staff led by Ms. Thomas and Mr. McCullen kind of work through this with the assistant manager. They've received feedback and worked with Selectman DiPaolo over the last few weeks, and they're here to update you this evening on some proposed changes. So Sharon, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, Sharon Thomas, Town Clerk. So we took your comments and feedback from the last meeting and revised the map, so that's that draft map 2B. Still, contains the 10 precincts. Under this one, 9 of the precincts will have border changes, so precinct 3 will be the only precinct that stays intact. Under this one, we will have 6 precincts will remain with like 24 town meeting members. 2 of them will have 23, and 2 of them would have 25. And then Dan's the one that, manipulates, the map with, according to the census blocks and whatnot. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I have one quick question, then I'll open it up. So in terms of for town meeting members, does that mean 9 out of 10 precincts are all up for election come at the annual meeting?
Yes, so, right, everybody will run, and it'll be the top, the top third will get the 3-year seats, the next third would get the 2-year, and the remaining would get the 1-year seats.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Or Mr. DiPaolo, I know you did a lot of work on this, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into a lot of stuff, but I want to thank you both for all the work you did. I know how hard this is to do. It's not as easy as just moving the street here and there. You have to work with the census blocks that are given to you by the government. Is it the state or the federal?
Federal.
Federal.
Or both.
Which makes it really complicated. And frequently, trying to fix something in one precinct can affect 2 or 3 others. It'll always affect another one, but it's hard to do, and it's hard to keep it coherent. So I appreciate all the time that you put into it. I just had one comment. I was just comparing one of the versions to another version, just to see how the numbers worked. And these things are balanced almost as closely as you can. You can't get it perfect to try to get to everybody get 38, 33. But between one version and another version that were very, very similar, just moving 36 people, one census block, so it's 36 resident, there'd be a head count of 36, got moved, and another one of like 19. It changed the way the 2 precincts came out of which one got the 25 and which one got the 23. So it's a very, when you're trying to get it really close, it doesn't take much to change something, and it's really difficult to do. So I just wanted to say thank you, and in 4 years or so, you're going to be just reallocating. We're not going to do precinct lines, but
Correct.
and we know things change, but it's a lot of work, and I appreciate all you did.
Oh, plus also under that, the draft map 2B, we did allocate, for anticipated development with the Edgemere crossing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. The recommendation is for map 2B.
Do we recommend it, or do we approve it?
No, that's recommended. We'd approve it, but I'm just saying, we have 5 maps, 5 precinct maps in front of us, but the recommended
Oh.
re-precincted is under 2B. Just for version in the record, if you look at it, like,
So you want a motion to recommend that we approve? a
I'll
certain-
recommend we approved, yeah.
Okay, well, then I recommend approval of the draft version 2B.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of map 2B for re-precincting, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That's sufficient, right, Mr. Mizugar? We approve that. 2B, re-precincted map. Even had many in front of us. Again, Mr. Apollo, thank you for all your hard work, and as well, thank you both for all of your hard work on this as well. I know went through a lot of different versions and a lot of, it's like Rubik's Cube. You move one thing and it looks like
Yes.
followed right after that. I'd take the stickers off to make it work, but you guys had much harder work. So thank you very much, and thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much.
Dan, was this your third one?
Fourth from
Fourth?
Mr. Howland.
Wow.
Next item on the agenda is also under meetings, hearings. It's a meeting with Jeff Howland, DPW Director, and Nick Ripetka, Highway Division Manager, to discuss the snow and ice route optimization project. Colleagues, we had a memo in our drive together with several of these slides. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we're getting fired up. I'll just give a little background here. And this relates to the funding from the August 2020 annual town meeting to study existing snow and ice operation routes for optimization. So we have this presentation in front of us as well, which viewers now at home can see. So welcome.
Good evening. For the record, Jeff Howland, DPW Director, and I have Nick Ripetka, who's our Highway Division Manager. Last year at the town meeting, we were provided funding for a route optimization plan, or a route optimization study, I should say, in which the goal was to check our optimization and our efficiencies of 3 objectives. One, our salting routes, our plow routes, and our sidewalk routes. Through careful consideration and solicitation, we chose and after interviews, we selected a engineering firm out of Bloomington, Minnesota, Quantico Engineering and Consulting, one of their specialties is snow plow optimization. That is a brief background. Nick will go through the procedure that we did to get there. But I can say that we spent every Thursday morning for an hour or two for almost 6 months discussing the routes, going through the routes, going through our objectives, them asking questions. They got into significantly more detail than we ever envisioned. They got into fuel costs. They got into how much each vehicle, miles per gallon. They got into types of vehicles, things that we were not anticipating. We also went into it with no necessarily preconceived notion of whether or not our routes were efficient or not. Our routes were just sort of scabbed together over years and years of just a new road comes in, we add it to Route 2. Another road came in, we add it to this route. And we just sort of did it, and it worked. We assumed. So when we hired the Quantico, we basically said, evaluate it and make recommendations as you see fit. The only other caveat is we wanted the same number of vehicles that we currently have, because we knew obviously we can hire 100 more trucks if we can get the routes done quicker. Well, we knew that wasn't going to happen. we assumed, optimally, we have 54 pieces of equipment on the road during a plowing event. We would prefer 55, but 54, we can make it work. So I'll turn it over to Nick, and he'll give the synopsis of the 3 objectives.
Good evening, everybody, board, Mr. Town Manager. Nick Ripetka, I'm Highway Division Manager. So just a quick overview. The objective of the study was to evaluate our existing routes and either validate or modify the current routes to optimize the snow and ice program across town and all facilities, including parking lots, parks, and the cemetery. As you all know, there are about 320 lane miles over our streets and 12 to 15 miles of private streets that we have to plow and maintain for winter conditions under Mass General Law, and roughly 25 miles of sidewalks that are plowed throughout the town. And as Jeff said, the current routes were developed over time as the town grew in lane miles, in population, the town staff based shifting routes in an attempt to equalize the routes to get them completed. So in December 2020, baselines and recurring weekly meetings were set up. This helped Quatica begin to understand that the current state of what the Highway Division's goals and mission is during the winter events. Data included traffic direction, turning restrictions, traffic rules and regulations, our current existing routes, previous data from our material spreading equipment reports. They actually asked for complaints, snow accumulations, and all that information was forwarded to Quatica. Currently, we have 33 plow routes utilizing roughly 54 pieces of equipment in what we consider optimal. And that's our current state. The length of time to complete the route would be shortened by adding plow routes, but municipalities throughout the region are experiencing shortages of hired contractors. Therefore, working with Quatica, we opted to conduct the study with the assumption that the number of routes and pieces would stay constant or possibly reduced. And our engineering division assisted with our geographic information system, we know it all as GIS. The information included street information and the area of the parking lots. And I gotta say a huge thanks to Dan McCullen, who was just on the last presentation, for his assistance and expertise with this program. He put in unbelievable time, and the information that he gathered with his expertise was second to none. So currently, spreader routes, we have 8 routes, and on the screen you can see kind of what Quatica broke down for miles and the current road miles and how it's treated. So we use Highway Division staff and then back up from the Park and Cemetery divisions for our spreader routes. The optimized routes are more balanced in terms of workload, and this addresses the issue with the existing routes currently have an uneven workload. For example, Truck 13's route is 55% longer than Truck 5's route, requiring the driver to put in more time to finish the route. And I'm gonna switch down. So those are what the current optimized routes would be. They incorporate the municipal parking lots and the roads in the cemetery, which helps the winter operation better manage the overall operations and snow and ice events. Optimized routes are more compact than the current routes, and they have less crossover between each of the routes, resulting in improved operating efficiency. They've also provided, Quatica provided turn-by-turn instructions to assist the drivers on the navigation. It will reduce the deadhead miles and improve route efficiency, since they're created based on the best routing strategies, and help drivers, especially the new drivers, navigate the routes and improve the balance of the workload. In order to utilize route navigation, the town will have to purchase the devices for the snow and ice trucks and equipment. So over to the plow route. So that's our current plow route. It shows 33, including the cemetery and the parking lot with the overall miles for each route. For example, the Snow Route 19 is approximately 5.5 times longer than Snow Route 23, requiring the driver to put in more time. We gave the drivers, we put a baseline on it for approximately 4 to 6 hours of work to try to get these completed, and that's how they based the new, those are the side-by-side maps. So it gives everybody a little bit of perspective on kind of what our current state was on the left-hand side to what the new routes are on the right-hand side. And again, these routes included the parks, the parking lots, and all the roads in the cemetery. And they're basically, it's the same thing. It reduces the deadhead mileage, and it helps the drivers navigate easily through and balance the workload.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So it may be obvious to someone else. Salty miles and road miles aren't the same number of miles. Is that because parking lots? Like, why are they different?
We're,
Right, the salt, so you have,
If you're salting the road, right? Why are the mileages different? Is it because cemetery, parking lots? What?
is it because some roads you have to salt twice?
yeah, there may be more,
The wider roads you have to salt twice?
I mean, like go up and then down.
well, you would do that anyway, but salting would stay in a lane where maybe some of the plowing would go all the way to the gutter. So it's an extra pass you'd have to make with a plow.
Okay, that makes sense.
That can only be my assumption on that. I know there is a slight discrepancy in the number 183. So the current route,
Right, because some of the routes require us to have 2 trucks in order to plow from center line to gutter. Actually, a lot of them do. Where the salting, you would just stay in the middle of the travel lane, and you could get from center line to the gutter with 1 pass.
Thank you.
and then a little history on the sidewalk route. The sidewalk route was developed over time just with in-house staff. We never had an actual map of the sidewalk route. We did our own kind of turn-by-turn directions. It was just a narration that we worked on. And so we asked Quantica, because we have 2 machines, to develop 2 plow routes that were equal and prioritized as best we could with two pieces of equipment. So they assigned 2 routes to cover all the town sidewalks that fall under our responsibility. They were balanced in terms of workload, and they included the turn-by-turn directions as well. They just reflect our current equipment assets for maintaining the sidewalks in the winter. So in conclusion, that brings forth the recommendations to condense the routes, to have better boundaries, less deadhead miles, and less overlap between the routes. This also included the cemetery and the municipal parking lots. And we are reviewing the implementation of the optimized routes in a systematic process, starting with the spreader routes and the sidewalk routes. And given the uncertainty of contracted equipment, the plowing routes may vary each year depending on the equipment hired for winter work. However, the optimized routes will greatly assist us in plowing operations under all the scenarios. Further, devices will be needed to purchase in order to fully implement the turn-by-turn navigation, and there would have to be 1 tablet in each piece of equipment. But I was very pleased with the outcome of the study. It provided us a great opportunity to review our existing routes through modern and an objective approach. Comparing the optimized routes with the current routes, we found that only minor manipulation of the routes are necessary, and we look forward to start the implementation of the new routes to better serve the residents, businesses, and through traffic during snow and ice operations.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. LeBeau.
Mr. Ripetka, thank you so much, and Mr. Howland, this is an excellent analysis. My only question or observation, and I looked very, very quickly, it's almost like there's and tell me if I'm wrong, like a little bit of a change in philosophy on how equipment is used. I looked in my neighborhood. So Walnut Street had a route that was a lot of secondary roads, but not subdivision roads. And I think larger vehicles were used for some of those roads. Now I see that it's going to be concentrated, which I understand the efficiency of that, but so we'll be putting, where we were sometimes using smaller pieces of equipment, now we're gonna be using bigger pieces of equipment?
So Jeff and I had this conversation too. The only equipment, and down in your neck of the woods, there was a town vehicle on Walnut Street itself, a larger piece of equipment, and then there's a couple smaller ones in the neighborhood, the smaller trucks. Those who've been what historically has been down in that area. The only vehicles we can guarantee each year are the ones that are in the garage on South Street. So we have to think about the route and what piece of equipment would best fit by what we hire each year, or what's provided to us by a contractor. Past couple of years, it's been those current equipment, pieces of equipment that are down there from, if my memory serves me correctly. But when we went into this, they asked specifically on some neighborhoods, does it require a front-end loader? Does it require a pickup truck? And again, I couldn't emphasize enough that the only piece of equipment we can guarantee is the one the town owns. So I couldn't say it has to be a loader, it has to be, because the town only owns 3 front-end loaders. So that if we specified more than that, I think would put us in a different position. Because we wouldn't be able to achieve that, or I couldn't guarantee that piece of equipment there.
So I just want to, so the assumption here is that all these routes would be maintained by town vehicles? No.
No.
That's where I'm losing.
So the salt routes, yes. So we currently have 8 salt routes, and we have 10 salt trucks. We have 8 primary and 2 backup. We're utilizing, the 8 will be utilizing highway personnel. The plow routes, we have the highway personnel, we have staff from Parks and Cemetery, and we have employees from the Water and Sewer Division, totaling about 18. 18. We need 54. The rest of them are contractors. We do have a couple of per diem drivers that come in. I think currently we have 1 or 2. The rest of them are contractors. Problem with the contractors, some of it may be front-end loaders, some may be a 10-wheeler, some may be 1-tons. It all depending on the contractor and what they're bringing in. One of the trends we're seeing is we're actually starting to see contractors that do come in are coming in with smaller vehicles. They're not coming in with the larger trucks. So that we may have to then, if depending on what comes in for contractors, we may have to shift what historically was say a town truck en route, and I'll make a number 7. But really 8 needs a larger vehicle. We may have to take that town truck, move it from 7 to 8. And we do that, Nick does that sometimes on a storm by storm, depending on who he knows is definitely coming in and what piece of equipment that they have.
Okay, so I think where I went wrong is the routes are established, but the equipment assigned to these routes is subject to change without notice.
That's correct. I mean, historically, if we have say the dirt roads, we try to put a front-end loader on the dirt roads, just because of the type of the roads they are. It's easy to do them than a different type of vehicle. But we may not always be able to do that, but that's the idea.
Okay,
And then we just move from there.
thank you.
We'll go left to right. Mr. DiPaolo.
Couple of questions. I know partly you have to take what you can get from the contractors, but do you have a preferred list of equipment that you want? Say, you're looking for 3 front-end loaders, you're looking for 10 heavy 6-wheelers or something like that, and then, I don't know how many pickups or whatever? Or do you just advertise that we need 40 private contractors? How does that, do you have goals that you're trying to get, or do you just, I know you can't always control it, but how do you do that? What's the?
So we advertise with certain rates for certain pieces of equipment. I think we have 5 or 6 different rates.
Right.
With specified equipment. We've never put a baseline number on how many pieces. With my history, we've never turned anybody away because there's never been a surplus of equipment. We kind of, again, I think you said it best, take what you can get, to make sure you have at least every route covered. And that's how historically we've done it. And even my predecessor would certainly not turn anybody away. But, there's always the ideal situation. And we actually had a long conversation this morning about what our ideal situation would be and what ideal piece of equipment. But sometimes it's very difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
So we have to manipulate what we have.
Mr. DiPaolo, go ahead.
So if things work the way you'd like to see them work, which they probably don't almost ever do in a storm, the routes should take somewhere between 4 to 6 hours.
For curb to curb, yeah, for plowing, yes.
So, just so people understand what that means, the truck's gonna come by, you might not see another truck on the street again for 4 hours, right?
Well, and that all depends on a storm, there's
No,
different.
right, but
Yeah,
if
it's
it's a
different
big-
processes. If it's a storm that's gonna put down a quick 2 or 3 inches and we know a deadline stop time,
Yeah,
then sometimes the protocol behind that is they'll plow street to street as they complete and get it done and work through their route that way instead of maintaining and making a pass, like you say, and go down that street to the next one and keeping everything open for a certain amount of time.
okay. So we got the study, obviously you have to have the vehicles. What's the plan to implement? Doesn't sound like this is happening this year.
So we plan on implementing this year definitely the sidewalk routes, and we're looking at implementing the salt routes, because it's town vehicles. We have been in touch with our lead mechanic on setting up each truck with the, basically the stand to put the tablet on. And then we'll be looking to purchase, I think we need 6 additional or 7 additional tablets. We may not be able to have them depending on how long it takes us to get the tablets, but the goal is to try to get them in the vehicles. Each of the drivers will have the turn-by-turn on paper. We would prefer, obviously, the tablet that can just hit a button as they go through it, as they complete each spin.
What are the private contractors gonna be expected to do?
So then as we go through this year, and then next year, we'll try to start implementing and giving it to the private contractors. Our town staff, if they have the tablet in their vehicles already in their trucks, they can use on their particular route, will be able to do it. And then we gotta figure out how we're gonna handle the contractors in terms of, do we provide them? We'll provide them the turn-by-turn for their route.
Does the tablet, a turn-by-turn is fine, and once they get used to the route, they're gonna know it anyways, but is there an efficiency to the tablet that you don't have with the paper route?
You can just look at it on a screen, just like it's like a GPS in
Following
your car?
Following the GPS when you're going somewhere?
That's correct.
Yeah, we did a demo of it, and it basically takes you from the start of wherever your current location is, and it tells you how to navigate through that route, each pass and each turn, and it'll get you through it one way and take you back the most efficient way to make your second pass.
You're gonna have that on paper, though.
We have them all on paper.
So are the contractors gonna be required to buy a tablet?
We have to talk about that. In the past, when we've had a contractor come in which they were required to have a tablet, and I'll use the stormwater, in which we had the catch basin cleaner, we gave them the tablet to use during the time that they were in town, and they gave it back to us.
Hey, just one last question. Contractors have to have a cell phone, right?
Yeah,
You have to be able to get with a,
there are sections of town, the cell service is poor.
I'm sorry?
There are sections of town where the cell service is poor.
Okay.
In which we actually ran into that problem using our cell phones while doing the turn-by-turn, because we took each of the, Nick and his staff actually, while going through the study, actually took each route that the company gave us, and we drove each route just to see, is it efficient, can we actually do the route, does it make sense? And there were sections where we lose the signal, and the tablet had it had problems because it didn't know it basically taught us to go back.
No,
Because-
what I meant was, is there a requirement that the drivers have any kind of equipment so that you can get in touch with them?
I'd have to double check the contract, but I think it says.
I mean,
you
like a
at least
phone or something,
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering what they had to have. Well, good luck with it. Hopefully, we won't have a bad winter and you won't be taxed too heavily, but never know.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I
Mrs.
just wanted to
Cassavant,
ask,
go ahead.
around the sidewalk plowing, how the decision is made, which sidewalks to plow and which sidewalks don't get plowed?
So this is kind of a historic sidewalk route. Ever since I've been here, it's been the same sidewalks that we've always done. I think it correlates to business districts in the school zones and in the walking, particularly around the schools.
I get a lot of questions when it snows from people asking if the sidewalk is going to be plowed by the town. I know there's nothing saying that homeowners have to, shovel out a sidewalk around their residence, as some communities do have. So it's just sort of sporadic. And we have 2 sidewalk plows and 2 people to drive them? Or do we not have 2 people to drive them? Because historically, I recall having 2 sidewalk plows and only 1 person to drive them.
That is, you're correct. We do have 2 sidewalk plows. That's why we opted to have 2 optimized routes, or at least designed 2 optimized routes. The past couple of years, it's been operated by highway staff, and typically after a snowstorm is complete, most likely the day after, because these are the same drivers that are out pre-treating the roads, plowing, treating the roads after a storm, and then it could be several hours of work,
Correct.
I mean, we've been up, one of the storms 2 years ago, we were upwards of 48, 50 hours.
Yeah, they always seem to hit one after the other.
Yeah, so it was a long duration,
For
and
sure.
you just couldn't keep the same staff members out there any longer. You had to get some rest, and then we put them out, and we try, it could be anywhere. If we're plowing a sidewalk with a couple inches of snow, with 2 pieces of equipment, it's 2 8-hour shifts to manipulate the route.
Right.
And then if we put the snow blowers on, if it's a significant storm, you're in the 40-hour range of snow for both pieces of equipment. It almost triples the time. And that all depends on the depth and the weight of the snow and how wet it is, and then barring any breakdowns.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
And just so we do solicit sidewalk drivers, if anyone wants to run one of those pieces of equipment. We have an ad out now, but the last couple of years, we've been unsuccessful in getting an applicant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Could I just,
Actually, I have one.
okay,
I'll turn it over to you.
follow up after.
Sure. So, quick question on the routes. Mr. Howland, you talked about, type of roads, maybe dirt roads. As part of the optimization, did it look strictly at miles or also the roads themselves? So you could have, in one route, 10 cul-de-sacs, or you could have, so does it also look at that with the road, speed of roads, so that it takes all of those factors when it optimized? So one may be in mileage, 20% longer, yet take a shorter period of time? Is that part of the process?
It was, which, to be honest, there were things that they looked at that we weren't expecting them to look at, because they did ask us, what is the speed limits on all of the streets? So if you're running from South Street to go to Colonial Drive, how fast can the truck go to get from South Street to Colonial Drive? What is the speed limit? And so they did look at all of our speed. They looked at the restrictions that, can they make a left turn? Can the truck physically make a left turn? Can they make a right turn? Is there locations that they cannot do which will affect the efficiencies? The goal was to try not to having the vehicle turn around, other than at a cul-de-sac, obviously, but to actually turn around to get to the end of a road or to get to an end of a route and actually in the middle of the road have to do a U-turn. They tried very hard, and I think they accomplished that, but that again altered some of the, not that we did it, but that changed how some of their thought process was.
We had excuse me, Jeff, we had to baseline certain things too, as far as speed of vehicle, because that varies. A front-end loader or a backhoe is significantly slower than what a pickup truck or a 1-ton would be. But we baselined it for actual plowing operation, I think 7 to 10 miles an hour. We baselined width of plow, because, I mean, you can go anywhere from an 8-foot plow for a pickup truck to a 12-foot plow for one of our front-end loaders. So we baselined it, so you count for so many width of the lane being cleared at one time, because, again, we just couldn't, you can never guarantee, except for the equipment that the town owns, what we actually have. So we tried to baseline all the routes, with a standardized setting.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables based on.
Yeah, and one of the things also is we have, several mass highway plowed routes that crisscross the town, Main Street, Maple Ave, Route 9, Route 20, Clinton Street, trying to avoid the amount of time the vehicles were on State Highway where the plow was up. So we tried to minimize the amount of times that were actually plow, or maximize the plow time and minimize the time that the plow was up. So that also went into account.
Thank you. Mr. DiPaolo. Go ahead.
Just, did you ever try to hire a sidewalk plow or a sidewalk snow blower? Not a driver, an additional piece of equipment?
We've never looked into, you're talking renting or?
Hiring out, like you hire out the private contractors with the trucks.
We've never ventured much further than what we have right now.
I mean, if they were available, would you consider that? If there was somebody available who could supply a piece of equipment and a driver, would you consider hiring one of them to try to get the sidewalks done after? I know the streets are a priority, but the people who walk, the sidewalks are a priority, and I know there's a lot of issues, but, I mean, if there was somebody if somebody had one, would you hire him?
So,
Or might you hire him?
I mean, to be honest, I think everything needs to be left on the table. So yes, that we don't have a rate at this point because we've never done that. I can tell you that I'm part of a listserv in which there's a bunch of communities asking that very question. And majority of the towns that I've heard don't do it, or it's extremely expensive, that it's not cost effective. They were saying, there was one town that said $300, $350 an hour to rent the piece of equipment plus the person.
Oh.
And I think that was, I can't remember what town that was, but I was surprised because that seems awfully high.
You think? Wow. Maybe I should buy one.
I thought you were offering. I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, well, I was gonna-
No, I was just,
I can provide the paperwork, Mo.
wow. Well, it's amazing.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Mizik, or anything from you at all?
Can I just say an antidote to your thing about shoveling the sidewalks? When I was doing some of the research on the deeds and town meeting stuff, back in the 30s, the town had a bylaw that you had to shovel your driveway, and town meeting rescinded it.
It's been that long.
We did have a rule back then.
Good, well, thank you.
Can I just make one last
Oh, please
statement?
do.
We are still looking for snowplow drivers for the winter, so if anybody is interested, please let Nick know.
Great. Thank you, thanks for the hard work, thanks for the education this evening as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forward to it being implemented. Great. Next item on the agenda is new business, to review and act on the road closure request from Andy Truman, town engineer, for a closure of around 57 North Street and 34 Cross Street, in relations to two street opening permits to install water and sewer connections for 2 new houses being built at those locations. Good evening.
Evening.
You could introduce
Yeah, Mr.
yourself.
Chairman, Andy Truman, Town Engineer for the record. I'm really here just to facilitate the request. I say Steve Corvo, who is a developer in town, is working on a couple of houses, on the Cross Street, North Street area, and obviously we have our online permitting system, so now we have the ability to catch those requests ahead of time to close streets, and he did put one in, and realizing that the street's closed in a month, I, expedited to get it on for tonight, so I think Mr. Corvo could certainly ask technical questions about it, if the board has any questions.
The only question we have are the dates.
Yeah, we didn't have any dates when I put in the memo, so.
Yeah, so we're looking to do it in a couple weeks. We want to, in order to do the work, we figure we need 2 days at 34 Cross Street, probably 3 days at North Street, with that being a day for the pipe work and then another day for the cleanup road patch on Cross Street. On North Street, we probably need 2 days for the pipe work and then another day to patch the road after that.
So that's 5 days
About-
total. for each
about-
one.
Yeah, about 5 days total.
So obviously, the thing that leaped out at me is they're basically around the corner from each other, so we should probably.
Yeah, and the maps are in here as well, the
Yeah.
detour routes.
And each detour route kind of uses the other street, so I think we just need to figure out.
Yeah, so the detour for 34 Cross Street would be similar. It's exactly the same as what we did when we did 36 Cross Street and then when we did the other house on North Street last year, and I think maybe even the year before. And then for 57 North Street, proposed detour route is to go through Meadow Hill. And basically, the detour is so short, you can almost see the other end of it from one side, so I don't think,
And you go
it's
through
pretty tough to
regular
get lost over there.
with all the departments and get,
Yeah, typically, once we've confirmed, the date's certain, we will reach out to, Waste Management, the school department, fire and police, and then we do our typical code reds and meter outlet. We're certainly getting, you know, a lot more efficient at letting the neighbors know. We just obviously need to iron out the dates, so it's a week for each one, I guess. We just need to figure out
Yeah, which days work?
which days are the best. And I'll just,
Mr. DiPaolo.
Just one question. So this work will be done before December?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the road closes, I think, Thanksgiving or what's the last?
usually that's what I realized, because originally I was thinking, well, we'll get this on for the next agenda, realizing that, you know, believe it or not, it's November next week, and the streets close at the end of November typically, unless it's for emergencies.
So you're just doing the connections in the road to get them done, so you don't run into that problem?
Exactly,
Doing it now?
exactly. Yeah, get them out of the road, and then we can run them in the site after that.
So, I mean, a couple of weeks would be the week of the 15th. I'm assuming you want to get it done before Thanksgiving,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
so,
So ideally, if we have approval to do it, we can coordinate with DPW, dry weather days, obviously, but that's generally what we're looking to do, second or third week in November.
so. if we-
Did you say, excuse me, second or third week?
Yeah, so I'll pull.
Okay, no, that's okay, just,
Yeah, I'm just thinking if they, I mean, it's up to the board really, but if they want to do them concurrently, I'm just thinking of the detour plan, or whether you want to do one week and then one the next week, so.
Yeah, I think we probably need 3 days in the road at North Street, and if everything, you know, 2 days for the pipe work, and then a day to clean it up afterwards, and then 2 days in Cross Street, so it's 5 days total. It's the same crew doing the work, so we'd like to bring the equipment in, start one, finish it, move over to the next one, finish it, and the only thing I'm at the mercy of, they might want to do both road patches in the same day, but it's, we need obviously dry weather to do it, because we'll be down pretty deep for the sewer on one of them.
So, does the week of the 8th work for you?
I think if,
The plan would be to stagger it once the 8th and once.
Well, I'm just thinking, 'cause obviously the week after that's Thanksgiving, and we need some rain dates in there just in case.
yeah, so we have the 8th to the 12th, or the 15th to the 19th, and then Thanksgiving's the 25th, so if we plan, I'd like to get it done the week of the 8th to the 12th. If worst case, it would be the week of the 15th to the 19th.
sooner the better. You never
Mrs.
know.
Cassavant, did you have a question?
Is it all day? What time would you start?
Historically, when we've done it, they've given us the condition that we couldn't close the road until after like 8:30 or something, I think when the last school bus went by, so that's kind of what we've been used to doing. We might cut the road and kind of get ready to do it,
Right.
and then close the actual road at like 8:30, but obviously, the longer they have, the better, because they get in and get it done.
But yeah, we do typically wait at least to get the buses through in the morning, and then again at the end, the afternoon. Because it's a very narrow road, so it's not like there's an opportunity to squeeze them through, so,
In my neighborhood.
yes.
So we'd do one then the other, not two at the same time, except.
They definitely wouldn't be done the same day, yeah, no.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve the application to close the road as requested.
Second, I just didn't know if we wanted to put any dates on that.
But they're,
I'd
Yeah,
say
yeah,
I'd be
the
no
week of the
later
8th.
than November 19th.
Yeah, the 8th through the 12th?
Yeah, so I think if we're gonna put dates on it, I'd rather have the 15th or the 19th, just because we need
No
to
later than the
mobilize
19th.
Yeah.
cabs. There's a lot of coordination that needs to take place.
So can we just say the 8th through the 9th?
Agreed. I mean, I was suggesting we say no later, by the 19th.
Okay, yeah.
With the, I'm sorry to jump on you, the approval of the DPW, as coordinated with the DPW.
And
Okay.
I guess, as we get closer to the dates, if something changes, I can certainly reach out, through the town manager's office to let you know if something changes.
so I amend my motion to have the work done by November 19th. That's what you were saying, right?
Second.
Have been moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming
Earl.
this evening. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is also under new business, to review an act to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with Raftellus for the Shrewsbury Strategic Plan project. Colleagues, as you recall, back on the 12th, we authorized Mr. Mizikar to enter into negotiations with Raftellus that we chose at our last meeting. And we had the price proposal together with the agreement itself was in our drive. Are there any questions or comments? I have a couple. First thing is, do we have a code of conduct that they have to sign when they come in? Is there any requirements that we have a vendor when they represent us in a service capacity? Just out of curiosity.
Not historically, no.
Okay, I just didn't.
Something we can pursue.
Okay, and then one comment I have, So the agreement itself talks about incorporating the RFP, but it doesn't get really specific. The RFP talks about who on the team. Everett Tellis team will help us out, but it doesn't get specific about who's doing what. So it's that one area I'd like us to get a little more specific, just to make sure who we think is gonna do, at least the initial work for us is who we're gonna get. I don't know I don't
Sure.
recall it being that clear in the RFP.
Sure.
And then, one more question on the price proposal on my big pad of paper here. It was 73,500, which is less than was appropriated, as town, appropriated budget was 99,000. You got a $50,000 grant, so it's well within what we expected. Just wanted to ask you about one other item that's on it relating to additional level of effort for community input. It'd be a separate line item of 6,500, which would bring to 80. What are your thoughts on that right now? Is there enough, you think, in the original proposal to cover what we're looking to do?
Yeah, so the current proposal has all the time associated with training the town staff in order to do the public outreach. The additional amount that was identified is really equivalent to several hours post each one of those town-led sessions for the consultant to compile data and build that into the analysis and the final report. So I think we have a sufficient amount at this time, a good mix between both developer-led and town staff-led sessions. Certainly may come back to the board if we find we need to gather more data, but I'm comfortable with just the baseline contract at 73 at this point.
Okay. And the timeline work too was well within the
Yes.
12 months, so they were the most aggressive on timeline where they ran a lot of concurrent paths on the various tasks. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the town manager to sign. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Next item, also under new business, actually a revision of previous business. So colleagues, a while back, we had approved an annual Fill the Boot drive to benefit Muscular Dystrophy Association. Utilizes the intersections of Main Street and Boylston Street. This, originally, we had approved it for mid-October, it didn't happen. So this is different dates to happen on November 6th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with a rain date November 7th, 2021. Any questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. The last item under new business is to review and act on the advisory sign request for Spring Street, Jadi and Pranjal Sekia, 221 Spring Street, pursuant to the Board of Selectmen Policy Number 6. Colleagues, as you recall, on the 12th, we modified Policy 6 to clarify a couple items regarding what signs the town would pay for, and others are subject to our review. In this instance, there's a request for a specific sign in the letter, but it was also a doctor's note. So it's a pretty narrow request with a medical note attached to it due to the child's needs, and that is what's being in front of us to approve, should the board decide to do so. It's the will of the board.
Move approved.
Your second?
Second for purposes of discussion.
Have been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate?
I mean, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I thought our policy, which I agree doesn't make any allowance if we get a medical note, but my understanding of the policy would have led me to a different conclusion than my colleague. But maybe I'm,
The updated policy?
yeah.
So, on this one, to me, it's the intent, it's not necessarily the actual sign itself, but the reason behind it, which is consistent with the health issue.
Right. I'm sorry. We were in a sidebar.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I don't know if it's the sign I would have chosen, but it's the underlying reason it's not. To me, one of the concerns is having a policy that's pretty broad. This is, in my view, narrow, given a separate medical note. But motion and seconded, but any other discussion? Okay. There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say no. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll go into executive session in a few minutes. Let me go now into correspondence. Let's see. Under item 15, email dated October 7th, 2021, from Joanne Rooney, 28 Crescent Street, regarding some issues that they were having, rats, in connection with the tear down of some buildings at UMass. And I know that Mr. Mizikar engaged in a lot of correspondence back and forth with that resident, so noted. Next item is email dated October 11th, 2021, from Stan Tronziak, 562 South Street, regarding watching our taxes, and Mr. Mizikar had responded to him, talking about as promised, the Board of Selectmen have worked hard over the summer to reduce expenses, which have resulted in the tax bills roughly $120 to $125 lower than they otherwise would have been. So noted. Next item, an email dated October 12, 2021, from Kathleen Rocheleau of 20 St. James Road, regarding yard waste. So yard waste had not been picked up at its regular time, but subsequently had been done after we corresponded as well to do so. So noted. Next item is an email dated October 13, 2021, from Robert Solis, 8 Sleepy Hollow Drive, regarding concerns with the DEI recommendations. Just some thoughts and feedback based on the recommendations from the DEI report, so noted. Item 19, email dated October 13, 2021, from Anna Darrow, Office of State Representative Hannah Kane, regarding Shrewsbury redistricting update. The good news in there, Representative Kane will continue to represent Shrewsbury, which is great news, as well as Senator Moore. So that is great news for us. That's so noted. Next item is an email dated October 14th, 2021, from Jordan Rubin, 9 Bunker Hill Drive, regarding standards for indoor mask mandates. So noted. Item 21, email dated October 15th, 2021, from Patricia Statkis, 320 Lake Street, regarding trailer trucks. We have responded to her email. Actually, I did that this evening. And my understanding is we're going to be doing a study there to look at the volume of traffic, together with actually the types of traffic on that road, and we'll respond back to Mrs. Stackis at that time. So noted. Item 22, email dated October 15th, 2021, from Melanie McGee, 28 Oak Ridge Way, regarding purchase of land for open space generally. So noted. Next item is item 23, email dated October 17th, 2021, from Julie Nason, co-chair of Advise, regarding the 2021 Shrewsbury Domestic Violence Vigil. She had, all members of the Board of Selectmen had attended. It was a very moving evening, and she had just sent along a thank you, and it was great for all of us to be there. It was, like I said, it was just a very impressive event and very moving, and the hope is that instead of honoring or remembering victims of domestic violence, that someday we'll just be celebrating the lives of individuals instead of remembering them. So noted. Next item is a letter dated October 21st, 2021, from Lawrence Gannon, 239 Main Street, regarding he's resigning from the Register of Voters. So noted. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Gannon for his service. Next item is email dated October 21st, 2021, from Dan Rowley, Superintendent, Water and Sewer Division, a letter dated October 20th, 2021. So noted. Item 26, email dated October 21, 2021, from William Gooley, 696 Main Street, regarding traffic and child safety. So noted. And the last item on correspondence is an email dated October 22nd, 2021, from Chief Jim Vonna, Fire Chief, forwarding of a thank you from the Northborough Fire Department. So noted. So colleagues, that's it for the formal items on the agenda. If there aren't any other items of discussion, I'll entertain a motion. We go into executive session for the following reason: under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town manager. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Roll call vote is required. Mrs. Cassavant.
Aye.
Mrs. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Aye.
Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia, aye. Motion passes unanimously. The board will now convene into executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Furthermore, the board will not reconvene back into open session. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you on November 9th. Good night.